The head nurse called me a primitive terrorist and stepped on my prayer mat in front of the entire cafeteria. When I asked her why, she looked me in the eyes and said, "Because your kind confuses healing with harming." I stayed silent. That was 6 months ago. Yesterday, she cleared out her office in the middle of the night without saying goodbye. The hospital staff mocked me for being an uneducated janitor, not knowing I was chief of surgery in Syria. I had a job mopping hallways at a Midwestern hospital, where the head nurse Clara decided I was her favorite target. With my thick accent and janitor's uniform, I looked exactly like what she expected from a Middle Eastern refugee who'd washed up in Cincinnati with nothing but the clothes on my back. What she didn't know was that I'd run the largest trauma center in Damascus for 15 years before the bombs started falling. One Tuesday morning, Clara loudly explained to the new residents that they should speak slowly around me because Ahmed probably doesn't understand complex English. She demonstrated by talking to me like I was 5 years old, asking if I knew how to properly clean the OR between surgeries while making exaggerated hand gestures. The residents laughed nervously as she pointed at my mop and said, "You push forward and back, understand?" I nodded silently and kept working because my medical license transfer was still pending, and the last thing I needed was to make enemies in the field I would hopefully rejoin soon. But during morning rounds the next day, Clara deliberately knocked over her coffee right where I'd just finished cleaning, then stood there watching me get on my hands and knees to wipe it up. "At least you're good at something," she said, stepping over me. 20 minutes later in the break room, Clara came in with 3 nurses talking about ventilators, then stopped and asked if I even knew what the machines did, answering herself by saying I probably thought they were magic boxes. "Where he comes from, they probably still use leeches and pray to Allah for healing," she added, getting bigger laughs. Clara escalated things during lunch when she found me eating hummus and pita in the supply closet. She took a picture and posted it on the hospital's message board with the caption, "Our janitor eating terrorist food in the closet like the rat he is." Within an hour, people walked past making explosion sounds and asking if I had a bomb in my lunch bag. When I tried to tell Clara her message was hurtful, she told me my kind shouldn't be allowed near medical facilities because we couldn't understand the difference between healing and harming. The next week, she brought nursing students to watch me work, using me as a cautionary tale. She'd point at my hands while I mopped and tell them how in Syria, we probably diagnosed illness by reading tea leaves and treated cancer with camel urine. She made me stand there while explaining that people from primitive cultures had different brain structures that made complex reasoning impossible. Then she discovered I'd been watching surgery videos on my phone during break. She snatched it and showed everyone, laughing about how I was probably getting off on watching real doctors work. She deleted my saved medical journals one by one while explaining that letting refugees near medical knowledge was dangerous because we might practice our backwards medicine on innocent Americans. Things got worse when I was cleaning the emergency department and a trauma came in with a severed finger. I watched the resident botch the initial assessment and stepped forward slightly, muscle memory taking over. Clara shoved me back hard into a cart. "You think you know something about medicine?" she screamed. "You're a janitor. Your opinion is worth less than the dirt you mop up." She grabbed my badge and held it up. "This says custodial staff. You clean up blood and shut because that's all your worthless brain can process." She pulled me into the middle of the ER and started quizzing me on medical terms. "Do you know what a scalpel is, Ahmed? How about sutures?" When I stayed silent, she turned to her students. "This is why education matters. Without it, you end up like him, someone whose biggest achievement is figuring out which end of the mop goes on the floor." She grabbed my face and turned it toward the students like I was a specimen. In his country, he probably lived in a mud hut. He should be grateful we even let him touch our garbage. The final humiliation came when Clara discovered my prayer mat in my locker. She held it up in the cafeteria during lunch rush, asking loudly if anyone wanted to check it for explosives. She threw it on the floor and stepped on it repeatedly, while explaining that this was what American freedom looked like, then used it to wipe up spilled soda while maintaining eye contact. Seeing my mat disrespected like that cut like a scalpel. But one day I was